Well, hello, and welcome to Module 1. The directed theme for this week is the split between structures of power and the significance of the individual. And while this is all relatively abstract as a concept, I'd like to abstract it a little further even. What I see occurring is a conflict between competing ideals which simply do not resolve together well, a real oil and water situation. On the one hand, we have inherited this tradition of valuing equality. On the other, we also have what I call a habit of hierarchy. The bulk of the colonial texts which Gray references in our book are built around Christian perspectives, and these form a great place to see this binary between equality and hierarchy in action. Within this frame, if we think in terms of their relationship to God, all humans can be said to be equal, all sinners. At the same time, among those humans, some are said to be saved, and this creates an inevitable hierarchy between those who have done right, or been selected to do right in the Calvinist tradition, and those who are bound for, torment. For us, the important thing to recognize is how a similar conflation of principles has remained embedded in our culture over the past centuries. Often we see references to the Enlightenment as the inspiration for our founding fathers and their political break with Britain, so I'd like to take a moment and talk about that. My central source for this is the historian Min-Soo Kang and his book Sublime Dreams of Living Machines. What Kang describes as happening over the course of the long 18th century, as we call it in literary studies, is actually two separate phases, or even two separate enlightenments, because their viewpoints are so radically different. In the early phase, human reason is seen as a divine gift for discerning the clockwork perfection set in motion by God. From this stage, we get a perspective which prioritizes stasis. Things are the way they are for a reason, if only we can find the reason. It's the kind of philosophy satirized by Voltaire and Candide through the character Pangloss and his dogged assertion that this is the best of all possible worlds. It's significant to remember that the critic, Voltaire, is also an Enlightenment philosopher in order to see that a major shift has occurred. In the second phase, human reason is still a divine gift, but it's one which is A, unequally distributed, and B, to be used in perfecting systems which may once have been set in motion by God, but are now corrupted by people. So, enlightenment begins with a sense of general equality. We are all where we're supposed to be, and we should make the best of our lot and be happy. Eventually, though, we get the sense that it is the obligation of the great, those who can discern where problems lie, to lead the way towards fixing them. It's a little counterintuitive, but what comes from this latter phase is an actual validation of inequality and an impulse towards progress as the natural state of being. What's interesting for us is how well this justifies the creation of a representative democracy as a form of government, arranging for leaders to rise from the common herd and guide them forward. The fact is, when we tell the story of the creation of the land of the free, we tell it as the story of exceptional individuals who rose to lead. In itself, this creates an inherent hierarchy among those who profess to believe that all men were created equal. That, I think, is a good place to start thinking about this, particularly as our readings lead us to consider some overtly obvious ways in which the practice of equality has been qualified during our history, especially along racial and gender lines. This week is fairly gel in its requirements. We have a good deal of reading, but only the one graded discussion to complete. Our second assignment is simply to familiarize ourselves with the Milestone Project and see how it is set out in this course through several stages. If you have questions, of course, please feel free and write me, call me, do whatever it takes, and we'll take care of it.